Welcome to the Grip Strip Podcast, episode 67. The Justin Marks is a Mogul edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew, and I'm here with my co-host Josh Fine. What's going on, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good, Phil. We have a pretty shocking news today with Trackhouse Racing deciding to buy out Chip Ganassi, and I think nobody foresaw that coming. So I guess we'll have to discuss that first here on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to go over all the racing that took place last week in Formula One, of course, Styrian Grand Prix, NASCAR at Pocono. Hard R actually didn't win a race for once or twice. But, you had the Dutch TT MotoGP, you had Brands Hatch British Touring Cars, W Series, return at Red Bull Ring. You had the 6 hours at the Glen, which Mazda won. So there's all that. We will go into all that within whether a regular segment or of course, the roundup. Then we will get into this weekend's events at the Austrian Grand Prix, second consecutive week at the Red Bull Ring, along with the Indy cars at Mid Ohio Sports Car Course. We'll have IMSA running again at Watkins Glen for a 2 hour 45-minute race. We'll have NASCAR's Cup and XFinity at Road America. So Cup will make their debut on July the 4th, no less, at Road America. That'll be the debut of Ryan Eversley as a Cup Series driver, albeit it's a Rick Ware car. Getting F3 because there's a bunch of Americans in there. And there's other news going on in regards to supercars and the like. Get into all of that. But first piece of news, as Josh mentioned and I mentioned, Trackhouse Entertainment Group, which is the overall overarching group, which is Justin Marks owned. He owns the 99 car in the Cup Series with Daniel Suarez. But as of the end of this year, um, as of November 8th of this year, he will officially own what is now Chip Ganassi Racing's NASCAR program. So that and get the two charters that are connected with that. Daniel Suarez will connect. It will continue to drive one of the cars. I'll assume they'll just keep the 99 number. What the other number and who will drive the second car is to be determined. What'll happen with all the people that are involved. The shop, the Ganassi shop, will be used by the Trackhouse organization. I mean, there's lots of things going on with this. I mean, Chip Ganassi Racing's been in Cup for 20 years and has 19 wins. Interestingly enough, I don't know, somebody on the social, somewhere in Twitter, said the only time that a Ganassi car finished in the top 5 in points was Sterling Marlin back in 2001. And then, of course, the next year, he led the points into September, got hurt at Richmond, and then aggravated his injury more, basically to the point where he had to get out of the car, and that was basically the end of Sterling Marlin's career at Kansas, which derailed that season and ended their chance at a championship. Allowed Tony Stewart to get his first of 3 Cup Series championships. I mean, there's lots of connections. Once you start kind of like digging into it, there's a lot of connections here between, the Trackhouse, Ganassi, DEI. You have Ty Norris in there. I think I was initially going to say the guy who says Dale and Cayocho now owns the team that used to be essentially the team that used to be the Dale Earnhardt Incorporated in the 8 car. But yeah, it's a crazy day in NASCAR and in charter sales when a few days ago Colleague went and spent $20 million for 2 charters from Spire, and now Ganassi flat sold his Cup program to go and basically commit to what he already has always committed more energy to, which is his IndyCar and sports car, and I guess now Extreme E programs. So I guess initial thoughts, Josh, and what do you what do you look for in regards to, or what do you think early thoughts on what the team may look like or who may be that second driver um, coming in 2022? Because there are rumors with at least one of their current drivers in regards to where he may be going.
Yeah, I think this news was pretty shocking. When I first saw it, I was like, "What? This isn't real." And then looked on Twitter and checked the sources and all that stuff, and saw the AP report that Trackhouse Racing had purchased Chip Ganassi Racing, and it's pretty shocking because there was no indication from anywhere until today that Ganassi was going to sell his team, and it didn't look like ever that this was, he's going to sell his team. It looked like he'd be a mainstay in NASCAR, his main teams being IndyCar and NASCAR. Now this happened, and Justin Marks essentially is taking over Chip Ganassi. And one point to bring up is Justin Marks used to drive an Xfinity in the 42 car on the road courses for Ganassi, and now he's essentially bought out his former car owner in that series. And then, of course, with Ty Norris, their former spotter for Michael Waltrip and Dale Jr., and then eventually general manager for DEI all the way up until the end, until he left a few years into that, like, back in the mid 2000s. And of course, taking a job with Trackhouse, and now essentially buying back into, or buying Chip Ganassi and basically taking over the remaining assets of Dale Earnhardt Incorporated in that number one car. So, like you said, a lot of things that went into that, a lot of things or stories and names to tie into this. And I think initially, they said that with the purchase of this team, that they'll try to keep on most of everybody. And I think, logically speaking, that probably indicates the 42 car from my initial guess, because it seems like Kurt Busch is probably on the way out anyways. That was trending before this news. He might be leaving the number one team and going to possibly a second team for 2311 Racing, being a teammate to Bubba Wallace. But I think for the 42, they'll probably keep that team around. I mean, it is essentially the what is now the flagship car for Ganassi. Obviously, the number one was the former DEI car, and then the 40 car went away. The 41 car for Ganassi went away, many years ago. So now I think that's basically the original Gasly team now. So I think that's probably going to be the one that they keep. We'll find out for sure. Maybe they don't like Ross Chastain or something like that, but I find that a little hard to believe, because I'm sure Marks probably has connections to him through maybe that, partnership with Ganassi when he was there. So I think we'll have to see what the evaluation process is, but I think that'll probably be the second car. Obviously they have Daniel Suarez, so Suarez being teammates with Ross Chastain, that could be a pretty good pairing. Both of them, fairly young drivers, and Chastain, we know he's pretty aggressive, and we have somebody like Daniel Suarez who's maybe not as aggressive, but certainly knows how to get the most out of his races, out of his cars, having been in a wide range of cars and Gibbs Racing, and then going to Gaunt Brothers and kind of grinding it out there on one of the lower teams for a year or two, and then now this car where at Trackhouse, where they've been able to quietly get a couple of top tens here and there and get stage points, and basically be the best new team right out of the gate. And then of course there's also the engine program. I think they both get Hendrick engines. I mean, we knew that with Ganassi, and I think Trackhouse also has Hendrick engines. And then there's the alliance with RCR. So I think we'll have to see if that continues on from now or for next year, if they still continue to partner with RCR in a technical alliance, or if they're going to eventually break away from that. And then, you have the story, or I guess the part of the story where they're going to be at the Ganassi shop for 2022, and then 2023, they're maybe looking to try to move to Nashville. we'll have to see how successful is that. Most of the teams in NASCAR being based in Mooresville, North Carolina area, and then it seems like that's your best chance of success. And we've seen in the past Furniture Row, being partnered with Joe Gibbs and staying in Denver, Colorado. Of course, it's a lot closer. Nashville being a lot closer to Charlotte than Denver, but we'll have to see that aspect. How good that does that I guess storyline work out for Trackhouse. So a lot of things to tie into, a lot of things to analyze, but initially just a total surprise. But I think one other thing I will say is for Ganassi, I mean, NASCAR is a huge revenue stream for him. And you have to think that even though with the sale, I mean, it's a one-time sale. And now that he's selling off the NASCAR team, he doesn't have that the value coming in from NASCAR, which is still the most valuable motorsport in America compared to IndyCar, compared to IMSA. So, I mean, now he gets to focus on the racing that he's most passionate about, being open wheel racing and sports car racing. But I mean, the funding that NASCAR probably helped him to be able to run those other teams is going away. And now he's going to have to make some considerations on those sides of what he's going to do with those teams and who he's going to have to pay over there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you consider his current sports car program is a unsponsored blank 01 Cadillac LMP, you know, uh, or DPI or whatever, with Kevin Magnussen, Renger van der Zande, but obviously they're two paid drivers, and uh, Ganassi has three full time or four full time cars with all fully funded with different sponsors in each case. Of course, Dixon with PNC, NTT Data for the most part with Alex Palou, and what is it, Husky Chocolate for what's his name, Erickson, and then Jimmy Johnson with Carvana. You have the American Legion on the 48 car. I think the fact is Ganassi, he'd run its course. He wasn't gonna sell, and he wasn't thinking about selling, as you said. And then Justin Marks gave him a deal he couldn't refuse. And frankly, I think the angle has always been for Ganassi. I mean, let's be fair here. I was trying to think about this once I heard the news of this actually going down, and I'm trying to think what are the years where Ganassi was actually a factor. And okay, 2001, 2002, it's Sterling. I agree. McMurray kind of flirted with the playoffs for the first couple of years when they had the chase format, but couldn't make it because it was 10 drivers. Then he moved on to Roush, and then they kind of dropped off for a year. They got Juan Pablo Montoya, and I think 2009 was the year. I believe it's 09. It was one of those years where
2009.
he was like points racing like crazy.
Yeah.
Should have won Indy.
Sonoma too that year.
Yeah. So I mean, that was 1 year. So then so that's 3 years. And then after that, McMurray came back in 10 and he had that great year, but still didn't make the playoffs, which was the only year of relevance he really had in his overrated career. But so then you have that. And then from there,
Larson 16 and 17.
16, 17.
Yeah.
So I mean, for a 20-year run in this Cup Series, and granted, Kurt Busch has made up a ton of points in recent weeks. Kelly Crandall was saying there, wrote a story on Racer.com, eating humble pie, that Kurt Busch has made up all these points, and now he's in the cutoff. But it shows kind of how weak the back end of the playoff is, and how they probably need to get rid of more drivers and make it a 12-driver chase like it used to be. Because frankly, the RCR cars are not amazing. Chris Buescher, God love him, Roush Racing. It's going to be Roush, Fenway, Keselowski soon enough. They're not that great. And then, Kurt Busch has been the drizzling until about 3-4 weeks ago. Kurt Busch and the 42 car were drizzling shits. I mean, I give credit to Trackhouse that they're taking RCR equipment, essentially the 13 car, and they're running 18th in points. I mean, granted, Suarez is a better driver than Ty Dillon. Granted, they probably have way better people. You have Travis Mack there. You have a lot of good, you have a lot of pieces there, a lot of money, good business decisions being made by Justin Marks, along with Ty Norris. Ty Norris wanting his redemption arc. And, I think they're going about it, and he's been talking, saying all the right things. Having Pitbull has been a great marketing boom for them. It's a positive for the sport. But what I look at it in this angle too. Now that Ganassi racing is gone and it'll be Trackhouse racing for the foreseeable future, whatever. What is the next domino to fall in regards to charters? Because the Spire deal, they were always in this to go and sell out, and they got Matt Collick to pay $20 million, or allegedly $20 million to get 2 charters, one that they're going to run full time. It sounds like it's between Justin Haley and Kaz Gralla, and then a second car that would be AJ Allmendinger on road courses and Ascend and other assorted tracks, but they aren't going to run. They're going to run multiple drivers in that car. Spire still has one charter left, which they're going to run with Penny Stacker, and based on, I think, one report, he's saying that they may run a second car, which I guess they're trying to figure out a way. I think some of these teams are trying to figure out the viability of running open, since JTG Doherty's been able to run an open car this year, to a point. I mean, let's be fair. JTG Doherty isn't really doing that great. I'm not sure Stenhouse. I have to see this. I have to check the points off the top. Just give me a second here. In regards to the point standings and where Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is 19th in points. He's behind Daniel Suarez right now by 6 points. So that tells you a lot. I mean, they're not running all that great with a team the amount of years they've had, and then of course Priest is behind all that. So I don't know. I was gonna look at it in this way: who are we looking at now that has charters that really ought to sell? I mean, I think there's a pretty obvious answer, but I mean, it's kind of like a softball there. And who is in line to get these charters? Is it JTG Doherty? Is it 2311? It's not Trackhouse anymore? Is there some other team? Is it GMS, who's rumored to be coming to Cup? Is RPM going to go away? Like that? What are the next things we have to look at, I guess, with this silly season? Because that's going to start spinning the driver market around too. Because now, theoretically, Kurt Busch, for all intents and purposes, is a free agent now. Ross Chastain is going to get hosed more than likely for a second time. Then you have some of these other pieces that are going on. Priest is probably going to go back to mods full time next year. So that car, who knows what the hell's going to happen to that car, depending on if they can or cannot get a charter. But what do you see, or what are you thinking, Josh, in regards to that?
Well, I think one team that you didn't mention there is Junior Motorsports, and Dale Jr. talked on Ask Jr. on his podcast about the level, I guess, that they would need to be able to get into Cup. And they talked about the rumor about Spire selling their charter, or whoever colleague bought their charters from. They sold it, or they bought it for Spire. They sold it for for 10 million to Calling Racing, and Junior said like this that wasn't good for him. Like they weren't willing to pay that much money, and that's out all the way out in the 8 figures range. And then of course Trackhouse, like instead of buying a charter, that was 1.8 in the news today is that instead of purchasing a charter and spending all that money, they just went the other way around and purchased the team. So that's another thing we're going to see is like who else is going to buy or sell their team. And I think maybe RPM, maybe they decide to sell out and cash in Richard Petty, even though he's not really the owner. It's some investor or whatever. Like, do they decide to sell out to somebody else, or they give up their charter? Maybe, well, I guess I was going to say Roush, but then of course there's the news that Keselowski is it's all but announced that they're going to partner with Keselowski and have ownership in that team. So I don't think there'd be a charter going away there. So I mean, some of the lower teams, maybe like you said, maybe JTG, they get rid of their charter or something like that. So a lot of teams or a lot of teams that could go into the Cup Series and don't have a charter, and maybe some of these lower teams like your friend Rick Ware, Derek Cope's team, the 00, do they decide to, if they continue on and then they have competition from Colleague, they have competition from GMS, Dale Jr.'s team, they're going to have to step it up. And I think these other teams, maybe even if they don't have a charter, they'd still be able to qualify their way into races because they're a higher quality team than those other teams like Rick Ware and the 00 car. So I think a lot of things left to settle here, and it's certainly this is just the first domino of silly season for 2022 and 2021.
Yeah. I mean, those are all great points. I think there's one piece that we haven't gotten to where there's supposed to be a performance aspect connected to these charters where for like a 3-year consecutive run, if you are below a certain threshold, I don't know what I forget what the specifics are, but it's basically something where the Rick Ware cars land, and if you run below a certain threshold for 3 consecutive years, you're one of the bottom 3 or bottom 4 or some crap. It's kind of like relegation in like the English Premier League or whatever, like kind of deal. Then that charter, you lose your charter. So under that pretense, Rick Ware should lose at least one charter. Just period, end of story. The 00 you mentioned, they suck. Quinn Huff's one of the worst race car drivers I've ever seen in my life. The team is just basically out there to be in the way. The world would be a better place if that team disappeared, honestly. Rick Ware Racing, God love them for how they do in Asian Le Mans series and have basically infiltrated IndyCar with their doppelganger and Dale Coyne Racing. But Dale Coyne's carrying them, and you have Romain Grosjean who's on his own redemption arc, and they're running pretty good. And even his son actually did decent in an IndyCar, which I actually gave him credit for. Considering I like to roast Rick Ware at any chance I get. But the point is, he was trying to. I think the one thing was, he was trying to hold Justin Marks' feet to the coals, and then he's like, well, I'll one up you, and I'll actually get a proper racing team, and that's what he did. And now Rick Ware's like, well, I can still sell him, but then he's like, oh, I'm going to run 3 cars. I'm like, no, you're not running 3. You've never run a proper race car out of your own deal that I've ever seen. Like, I would love somebody to tell me that listens to this show and comment, can you tell me a time when Rick Ware Racing has ever run a legitimate proper car in a NASCAR race that didn't have some sort of connection to Stuart Haas? I mean, to be fair, Cold Custard ran for them and they sucked dick. They've had other people run for them. They sucked. Tell me, at least, BJ McLeod, I could use BJ McLeod as a perfect example. Live Fast Motorsports. He just took that, Archie St. Hilaire charter, and he's already come out and said, no, I've already done this. I made this deal. I mean, it helps Tift has tons of money too. I'm not getting rid of it. I get it. You know why? Because he's utilizing that charter money and he's helping himself in regards to his XFinity program, which is his main team anyway. That's his big. He has a multi-car team there. He has Stewart Haas connections with like team, I think a pit crew and whatever. He has Stewart Haas drivers driving for him, and they're running good stuff. They run better than the actual Stewart Haas car. I mean, it's not that hard because Riley Herbst is god awful, but the fact is they're running good. They're running better. They're somewhat competitive. That's the point. Like, if Rick Ware wants to go and be in the Cup Series, it's like it's one thing. I get the 78 is not the fastest car. Generally, they're not doing much anything. But BJ McLeod doesn't sit there and get in the way. BJ McLeod is actually good with the fans. BJ McLeod actually cares. You know, he has a plan of action. He has a direction that involves upward mobility. No, he's not going to get to be. No, to be fair, I don't think he's gonna get to Stewart Haas or Penske in the Ford camp, or you're not gonna get to Hendrick or for Chevy or for Gibbs for Toyota. But he's actually trying. If NASCAR actually cared about quality control, which obviously they don't, they would basically say to Rick Ware, look, sell one of those charters to 2311. Sell the other one to freaking JTG Doherty. Ask the petty organization, whatever medallion group, what you want to do with that charter and if they'll sell it outright. So then you have two cars. You want two cars? Good. Give your a shot. You can run two cars. You want to really make a quality cup field? That's one way to do it. You only have two cellar dweller pieces of shit. One less chance of having like Garrett Smithley or some never will be driving a car that can't even look in a mirror. You know, like get Cody probably should be in an IndyCar. You know, you have Ryan Norman who couldn't win an Indy Lights race or whatever. He's making his IndyCar debut in the third coin wear car. Like that's the thing. It's becoming that car. So it's like, you know what, just put Cody in the freaking IndyCar and put somebody who actually might have a modicum of talent that might have a chance and maybe make that car run good. Maybe people wouldn't shit on you every single week. Um, you know, or like that's the way. If NASCAR was serious, that's what they would do. Because that's what Trackhouse said. They're like, no, we're not going to give in to the lowest common denominator. We're going to go one up you, and we're actually going to go to a mogul, and we're going to buy him out, and we're going to get a big team, and we're going to get all these pieces, and we're going to be able to get this new car and be able to prepare it the right way, give Suarez a chance. And it also speaks to Suarez's words last year when he announced that he was going to this deal and he said that this is the best opportunity he's ever had. He's 17th and 18th in points, whatever. And to be fair, this is the best Daniel Suarez has ever run in a cup car this year. I mean, yeah, he's had moments, he's had good runs, and I think for both the 19 car and the 41, but this is the best he's been. This is the most TV he's gotten. All these different things for Suarez has happened this year. It's not by accident. The kid, I mean, is he an elite driver? No. He's a good driver. And that team is good. You have a lot of good pieces there. And now you're just adding on to that. That's what's good about that is good for the sport. Having the likes of Matt Collig, who's one of the only fresh owners, along with Justin Marks, that's good. The notion of a GMS coming into the sport probably going in, I think what we were talking about, I was talking with Clayton and Spencer, and the host and one of the other co-hosts on Talking in Circles. We were talking about all these damn charters and how maybe Petty finally gives it up and then they give it to GMS. You know, then who knows who the hell it would be at that point. Like that's not a bad thing. Maury Gallagher has been investing in the sport for many years, first with his son and now multiple trucks. That's a good thing. Yeah, those are the positive. You need to bring new ownership. Because all these guys are old as fuck. Outside of Tony, all of them are in their 70s, 80s, whatever. One Eye Jack was like 80, pushing 80 or whatever, or over 80. You have Fat Felon, 70s. RC, 70s. Or whatever, and who knows. All these guys are old, except for Tony Stewart. So the fact that you have a Justin Marks, you have Matt Collig, you have some of these other guys coming in, it's actually a positive. Um, in quality control, it speaks to quality control. It also goes and makes Rob Kaufman look like a genius, and he makes more money in the process. So it's sad, and that's another connection considering he's part of the Ganassi ownership group right now in the Cup Series. So now he makes more money. The guy was part of basically liquefying Michael Waltrip Racing because of Michael and Tynor and all these other damn things. Then trying to kill people at Le Mans, and then now he goes and makes this RTA, doing all that. Now it's like a fucking pyramid scheme, and Rob Kaufman's the only one that makes money really. Um, but yeah, I guess we'll find out what happens with that as the rest of this silly season goes on. I mean, we're halfway through the actual year, but we're past the halfway point in the Cup Series season. A lot's going to come along here probably in the next couple of months prior to the playoff starting. And we'll see what happens with whatever remaining charters there are. We will switch over to the Formula One race, the Styrian Grand Prix at Red Bull Ring in Austria. Saw Max Verstappen win yet another race and pretty dominating fashion. He did so well, I fell asleep. So credit to Max Verstappen. That's something I haven't done in a while with a Formula One race. So good on him. Pierre Gasly got taken out by Charles Leclerc, and Charles Leclerc didn't even get penalized. Gasly didn't even make it past the first lap. George Russell was running eighth early in the race, had overheating problems, and eventually had to retire the car. So, I mean, while his teammate could only beat Egghead by 8 seconds, 8.4 seconds. So it tells you how much of a difference there is between George Russell and his teammate Nicholas Latifi. It also speaks to where he probably should be. But I say that considering Valtteri Bottas actually finished third in the race. Verstappen won by 35. What is this? This damn stop. Yeah. Is trying to go over here. Yeah. 35.7 seconds over Lewis Hamilton. Beat Valtteri Bottas by nearly 47 seconds, 46.9. Sergio Perez finished fourth, and he was the last car on the lead lap. So there's 20 cars on the grid. 4 cars finished on the lead lap. The rest of the points finishers, Lando Norris, Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc, Stroll, Alonso, Yuki Tsunoda, they were all 1 lap down. Everybody from 5th to 15th was a lap down. Schumacher was on his own lap, 2 laps down. And then Latifi and Egghead finished 3 laps down. And the last 2 drivers there. So, yep, Max Verstappen adds to his points lead. Even with the Mercedes 2-3, Red Bull still gains points in the drivers' standings and the constructors' standings. Max Verstappen is now 18 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton in the World Championship. In terms of the constructor standings, Red Bull is 40 points ahead of Mercedes in the constructors. So it's starting to become an issue for Mercedes if they really are trying to continue this streak of winning both the drivers and constructors championship. If Lewis is going to win number 8 this year, it's going to be well earned. The way things have been going. I guess it's really Red Bulls and Max Verstappen's to lose at this point. Both of these championships, the way their car is, the way he's been running, the way they qualify. I mean, what is really going to stop them outside of just like Lewis Hamilton like nutting up like nobody's business to a level that is akin to like Ayrton Senna circa 93 driving a second rate Ford engine with the third best car on the grid kind of level to go and win. Like that's literally what has to happen. I don't know what you think though, Josh.
Well, I think for Mercedes, he come back from this deficit that they're under, this 18-point deficit. They're going to have to make a lot of changes and get a lot of upgrades into their car. And there's a lot of differences in Mercedes car versus Red Bull's car for this year. They got different wings. They've got a lot of their downforce is a lot different. I think power they're somewhat similar, but it's all in the handling, I think, and how much pace through the corners, and under braking that each of these cars have. And I think that's just where Verstappen is just so much better than Lewis Hamilton right now. And if they're not able to make the right upgrades, or if they don't upgrade, this championship is Max Verstappen's to win. And as long as they don't have they don't fuck it up, they don't royally screw themselves over with like some kind of engine failure or accident or something like that, this is the title for Red Bull to win this year. But for Hamilton, I mean, uh, they tried a different strategy again this week. They went with the two stop strategy. Um, they tried to undercut Verstappen, but they weren't quick enough to do it. And then at the end, they wore their tires out trying to catch Verstappen, then decided to go pit and set the fastest lap, and at least take that point away from Verstappen. But for the most part, I mean, it was all Red Bull's race there. I mean, they led 71 laps, and Red Bull could have easily gotten podium because they had Sergio Perez come in or get a pit stop towards the end of the race also. And then he was really close to passing Valtteri Bottas there on the last lap. Just got within like 6/10 or so of getting in front of him there at the end of that race. But for Hamilton, it's another second place finish, and if this trend continues, it's just not going to happen for him this year. And they say that they're going to have upgrades coming later this season, even if they continue to focus more so on 2022 with the new Formula One rules package that's going to come into effect next year with a lot of different changes that are coming to that car. But I mean, for this year, they've got to. I don't know what it is, but they've got to be able to figure out exactly what they got to do to catch Red Bull and at least turn the fight back into their favor here. But it's definitely going to be a big challenge because I mean, I think Lewis can do it. We've seen him do it before, but it's going to be a lot of help from Mercedes that's going to have to happen to make Lewis catch Max in the championship.
Yeah, and it's something that, after all these years, I guess there's plenty of people are happy about it. As a Lewis Hamilton fan, I'm not happy about it, but the notion is Red Bull for all these years has whined and bitched and moaned about the engine regulations and I think probably some of the other regulations that have been involved. What they did was they basically went the opposite way of what Mercedes was doing. They got the flexi wing deal, as you mentioned. They had the rake of the cars different compared to the Mercedes, and I think the Aston Martin more famously because of uh, Otmar Safnauer, or whatever the fuck he is, whining and bitching and moaning. Like they had those teams have been on a deficit the whole year, but you look at Aston Martin, they've been able to pull out some results with Sebastian Vettel waking up from the dead. And then you have Mercedes, of course. The notion with Mercedes, Red Bull has had them the whole year. Max Verstappen's had them the whole year. Checo has started to make some inroads these last few races, which I kind of felt like was going to happen anyway, and it has. Um, they so the point is Red Bull's got the better overall driver lineup right now. Red Bull has a better car. Red Bull, in theory, has an engine that is at the same level as Mercedes, as you mentioned too, Josh. The So where does Mercedes, like, where do you answer? Like, in like the upgrades, yeah, they 1 minute they're saying, oh, we're not going to upgrade anymore, so then you're basically mailing it. Then you're like, oh, no, we don't mean that. We're gonna have upgrades. We're gonna make sure to try to keep it. Because here's the thing, you're not gonna tell Lewis Hamilton, oh no, take it on the chin. He wants to get to 100 wins. I figure if something comes of this, he wants at least, if he isn't going to get his 8th world championship this year, he wants to get 100 wins. And I think 100, getting 2 more wins this year is possible. Do I think he's going to keep winning to a extent to where he can get himself not only back in the world championship and overtake Max Verstappen? I don't see that. There's too many circuits that exist that would favor Red Bull relative to the Mercedes. And Verstappen is at another level this year. He's taken that step that all these great drivers have had to do, whether it was Lewis, whether it was Schumacher, Senna, Vettel, Prost, et cetera, et cetera. All the great drivers. You had to take these steps, and now he's taking that step to where he's got that like killer. He's always had the killer instinct, but he didn't always have the racecraft, and he would do stupid crap like his moronic father. And then you had all these douchebags that are like his bosses and everything. Now it doesn't even matter. Like, he's very relaxed. He's very deliberate. And I think it also helps that Checo being there has kind of brought a calming influence to the organization. And he also brings a very mature, very meticulous methodology to his racecraft too. And of course, everybody knows Sergio Perez is like they're best at saving tires. So now you're using somebody who knows how to save tires with a car that's pretty good on tires, and now you're going and giving yourself options and strategy. So it's the worst case scenario for Mercedes, in that Bottas basically is a puppet, and everybody knows that George Russell is going to be in that car. And the only person I think that doesn't want it to happen, I think, is Lewis. He's kind of having vibes of like, Lotus Senna had in Lotus 86, but it's not that bad. Obviously, they were able to prepare 2 very good cars for both of their drivers and have a championship battle for 3 years when that other guy was in the team. And then they, for a couple, even 1 year, maybe 1.5 years over this whole time with Valtteri Bottas being there for the 4.5 years or 4+ years that he's been there. So, I mean, whatever. I think we'll see what what will be called the Austrian Grand Prix. We'll preview that later, but I don't foresee, even with the compound changes, much of a difference. I don't buy that all of a sudden in a week's time Mercedes is going to find 35 seconds in a race pace, unless they find like a half a second in qualifying, and then all of a sudden you're kind of in the mix. But that's just not going to happen, and it's a hard track. There are passing zones, but it's very hard to make things happen there. So we'll see what happens in general. The midfield battle, of course, Lando Norris continues to show himself to be a great contender here. He's in the top 5 in points. I mean, that's a great job in his 3rd year. He's only 10 points ahead of Sergio Perez. He's had 2 podiums. He's finished worse than outside of the top 5 only once this year, and that was 8th. He scored in every race this year, which I think he's the only person that's done that. Yeah, he's the only person that's scored points in every single race. Perez didn't score at Imola. Max Verstappen, of course, at Baku when he crashed out of the lead. Lewis Hamilton, of course, when he binned it there as well. Uh, he's had the 1 7th place at Monaco, but otherwise was first or second in every race. He had 3 of the first 4 race wins, and then the other one was Max Verstappen, and that's where the first 4 races were very close. The tide, of course, shifted at Monaco. Um, Leclerc is 6th. He's only 16 points behind Valtteri Bottas. Right now, Carlos Sainz and Leclerc are only separated by 8 points. Pierre Gasly, Ricardo, who had moved up to the top 10 initially on the start, then had some sort of overheating or some sort of issue, and then had to fall back or made a mistake. He fell back right back to 13, never could make the time back up. He's only there's 7 points between Gasly, Ricardo, and Sebastian Vettel. So I think in regards to the midfield battle, Ferrari actually showed up this past race compared to what the hell happened at Paul Ricard, where they were just like they were freaking smoking hot garbage. And then now they both teams got back in points. Granted, Charles Leclerc ran over Pierre Gasly to help himself, but um, is the in regards to the midfield battle is it still just McLaren? Or are we considering both McLaren and Ferrari still in play as we keep going into this season?
But I think right now for the midfield battle, I think it's mostly McLaren. But then I think on occasion like this race, you're going to see Ferrari have a good day like they did in this race. And then you're going to have races where they performed like they did in France, where both of their cars were way out of the points in this season. So it's somewhat inconsistent for Ferrari, where they're either in the points or they're out of the points in some races. And for McLaren, it seems like Lando Norris is their best shot, and for the most part, he's gotten the job done so far. I mean, every now and then you have Ricardo make it into the points, but this race he struggled. So not entirely, I guess, for McLaren, with Ricardo finishing in 13th compared to both of Ferrari's cars getting into the points in the top 10, Saints in 6th place, and then Leclerc in 7th. So a lot of difference there, but I think overall McLaren is the better team of the two. But occasionally we'll see them get outperformed by Ferrari, and then uh, like in this race where they did get into the points. But I think as far as like other teams in the midfield that we have to talk about as well. I mean, Fernando Alonso is still continuing to just get into the points, and I think in terms of consistency, that team specifically, that car has been able to get in the points many times so far this year in this season, and they've only finished out of the points, one time. I think this year 2 times. So for okay, well they yeah 3 times that they finished out of the points, and then the last 3 races they Alpine's had Fernando Alonso in the top 10 and get points. So I think that seems another team to talk about with the midfield battle, I guess. But I mean, overall, I think it's just McLaren's battle to lose as far as best of the rest. But Ferrari, they just have to continue to work on their team and have more races like this, and not like what they had last week in France.
Yeah, and we're gonna get to see it all kind of unfold again this weekend in Austria. Will this kind of mirror what we saw last week, or will teams like Aston Martin or Daniel Ricciardo, Pierre Gasly, what can he do in a recovery? Could George Russell finally get a point for Williams? Uh, he did score points, but of course, I was in the Mercedes last November when he should have won that race at Bahrain, the race that, of course, Sergio Perez ended up winning. We'll all see all that in regards to the Styrian Grand Prix, or I mean the Austrian Grand Prix. Uh, go back to NASCAR though. Before we get into the roundup, Pocono Raceway doubleheader for the Cup Series. You had trucks on Saturday, Xfinity on Sunday. Alex Bowman was the lucky recipient of hard R going and cutting a left front tire somewhere along the line and slamming the wall, destroying his race car. Third win of the year for Alex Bowman, just announced recently an extension. Ally is going to stick around too, so Alex Bowman's very solid at Hendrick Motorsports. And he puts himself in the mix as a championship contender for sure now. I mean, it's fine. Yeah, he won, what is it? He won the Richmond race, but that was like a restart deal. Dover, Larson, everyone thought Larson was going to win that race, but he got a restart there too. This race, he's got fortunate. I mean, the reality is there with Alex Bowman is a lot of his wins have been, kind of fortunate in terms of timing or the way things happen, but you have to put yourself in a position. And that's what he's doing this year. Is he as good as a 5? No. Do I think the 9's going to show up when it counts? Yes. What is the 24 going to do? Who knows? But the 48 is a factor. It was a factor last year. Him winning this race is not shocking. It's shocking how it happened, but it shouldn't be shocking. Kyle Busch was stuck in fourth gear and won on fuel mileage. So does old school Pocono actually winning on fuel mileage. Kyle Busch getting a win there. When it comes to the top 5, was a Bubba Wallace gets a top 5 finish. So one Michael Jeffrey Jordan was there to go and watch his car in person. And then Mike Wheeler finally decided not to dick step himself for once because he's liable to do that at any moment. So the fact that he didn't do that was pretty amazing. And it's probably because he knew that if he did, then he was probably going to get fired. Get into the top 10 results on Saturday. Bowman, Kyle Busch, Byron, Hamlin, Blaney, and Kurt Busch, Logano, Harvick, Larson, Keselowski. The race on Sunday, Kyle Busch, Larson, Keselowski, Harvick, Bubba Wallace finished 5th, Blaney 6th, Bowman, Preece, Tyler Reddick, Joey Logano. Of course, fuel mileage looks like a little bit more happened there in regards to leaders. It's kind of about the same. There's a bunch of wrecks there. There's a Cole Custer Newman on Saturday at Hard Wrecks. Chastain led early, but then had a wreck. You had some other argy-bargy go on there. On Sunday, it was a little more straightforward. A couple of, Ricky Stenhouse lost a ton of points with the engine issue. And, other than that, it's kind of a couple of mechanicals. Otherwise, it was a clean race. What are your thoughts on the Cup Series race? Bowman and Kyle Busch gets his second win of the year, so it's first time in a couple of years he has multiple wins in the Cup Series.
Well, for Saturday's race, Alex Bowman winning a shocker there at the end with Kyle Larson getting a flat tire into turn 3 of Pocono, and I agree with you there. I mean, most of Alex Bowman's wins have kind of come as more of a benefit of circumstance there. I mean, this one was basically Kyle Larson's race to lose, and then going into turn 3 and a flat tire, which maybe that came from running over a piece of debris in the tunnel turn, maybe, from going on to the apron there and then back onto the racetrack, very quickly. And that turn, as a lot of drivers try to, finesse the line there going into that turn and coming out of it. Obviously something happened there, and then they get a flat tire, and then Alex Bowman's able to take advantage of that and win the race. We saw him earlier this year get basically at Dover able to beat Kyle Larson off of pit road and then win that race. Won Richmond off of a late race restart by basically going on 4 tires at the end versus some of the other guys who were ahead of him only taking 2 tires there. And I think in the only race where he was really dominant was California in 2020. And then 2019, he won his first race by outdueling. I don't know. I don't remember. I think it was Brad Keselowski at Chicagoland. But I think for this one, he's able to benefit from that last lap pass. But I mean, he was up there. He put himself in position at the end of the race and had a battle there with Kyle Larson with about 4 laps to go. And then Larson won that battle up until the point where he had that flat tire on the final lap. So for him, solidifies his position in the chase or the playoffs. And of course, is able to continue to just focus on getting wins like this. And I think they'll be a team probably to watch in this playoff. But of course, we don't really know how good that team actually is because of the winds of circumstance that they've had this year. So we'll have to see for Alex Bowman. Then, of course, on Sunday, the race was a lot more calmer and a lot less eventful and led to kind of the classic Pocono fuel mileage race that we've seen in years past, but haven't really seen. I mean, the last time it happened, Kyle Busch was the one that ran out of gas in 2015 in the second Pocono race. And then that was when he was trying to make or get back into the top 30 after missing the first half of the season there with his leg injuries. But in this race, he was able to save just enough gas, ran his teammate out of gas with Denny Hamlin, who decided to go just a little bit too early. And then last lap they had to come to pit road, and that's the 3rd week in a row that they've pitted basically on the last lap because of damage, or they had to run out, or they ran out of fuel. So credit to the 18 team for getting the fuel mileage correct and having enough gas there at the end. And then of course second place on Sunday was Kyle Larson. So if 18 ran out of gas there, he would have benefited. If they didn't have the flat tire on Saturday, obviously we'd still be talking about Kyle Larson going for 5 in a row there, but obviously it didn't happen. And then of course, we talked about other guys like Harvick getting a top 10, Keselowski got a top 10. And then, of course, Bubba Wallace getting their first top 10 of the year. And then not only a top 10, but a 5th place finish, first top 10 and top 5 for 2311 finally in this season. And, for the first time ever in their history as a team. So, finally, did Bubba Wallace finish the top 10? Yes, he did. So, able to get that down. And now, I guess the expectations will continue to rise for that team as they continue to grow throughout the rest of the season. Kyle Busch now, has 2 wins. So, I think if you at least have 2 wins, that solidifies your position in the playoffs, and we'll see what happens. But I think for them, they'll, I guess, be able to take a little bit more risk, not have to worry about the point situation getting tight with a lot of teams only having 1 win. So we'll have to look out for that. And then I think one thing we had to talk about is the 5 team, and they were there both days, didn't get done, but they were still there. And I mean, they're still good. They just ran out of luck as far as wins is concerned. So I think next weekend still, or even at they won at Sonoma, and even here at Road America, still have to consider them as a team to watch at Road America, and then for the rest of the season until the playoffs.
And they're only 2 points behind Denny Hamlin in the overall points standing. So that's 15 or 20 or however many playoff points on top of the, I think, 8 trillion that he seems to have so far. So that's something to watch now, along with the fact that, of course, he's trying to get wins while Hamlin doesn't have one. You look at that, like Alex Bowman points wise, if it was strictly points, he would be 14th in points. And so the wins are a big deal for him. Kyle Busch is the only driver right now with 2 wins, and then everybody else behind him has 1 win or none. As I mentioned earlier, Kurt Busch is 3 points ahead of Chris Buescher in regards to the cutoff situation. Suarez, Stenhouse, and Bubba Wallace are all within 6 points of each other. So that's what we'll see. I mean, granted, with however many races left, we got 19, we got races in, so you have 7 to go. You would assume, as things stand, that after Chris Buescher, if you're trying to make this playoff, you're going to have to win. But we will see what happens in regards to that for the Cup Series as they go to Road America for the first time ever. The Xfinity Series ran on Sunday afternoon before, or morning in the afternoon before the second Cup race, and it was Austin Cindric doing Austin Cindric things and winning yet another Xfinity race, leading uh, leading the most laps after Harrison Burton led 11 or 21 laps and got into an accident uh, after the Justin Haley wreck that was caused by Sam Mayer, and which saw Justin Haley miss the Cup race because of the severity of the crash and basically being his breath being knocked out or wind taken out, whatever. And uh, I mean, it wasn't really all that. I don't. I mean, they'll say it was intriguing because Ty Gibbs was catching him, and then he probably whined about finishing second again, like he whined in the ARCA race because he's a pussy. Allgaier third, Gagston fourth, Allmendinger fifth, Hemrick sixth, Bruckshot Jones seventh, Jeb Burton eighth. Another top 10 for Josh Berry in the 31 car for Jordan Anderson. This week, Kaz Gralla will be in that car. And then Myatt Snyder in 10th. So, yeah, I mean, Cindric is doing what he always seems to do. He's got over a 100-point lead overall points. He's got 14 more playoff points than anybody else because he has double the wins, more double the stage win. I mean, at some point you just have to say it's like, yeah, we get it. We know you're going to be driving the 2 car next year, but you probably lay off a little bit. But I don't think he's going to stop.
I mean, I don't think Cindric is going to stop racing like this until the end of the season. And I think being a Penske driver is certainly has to hold him up to the standard of being a Penske driver. So, there are 4 wins this year, and I think they're going to continue to have races like this. So they're on track to repeat as Xfinity champions. So though nothing's guaranteed, I mean, at least in my mind, I think they could easily repeat. And Cindric is going to add his name to the list, the short list of names in Xfinity who won 2 years in a row and then went up the Cup. Dale Jr., Martin Truex, and then Ricky Stenhouse Jr. there, aka Richards. So, with that, I mean, it looks like this could happen, but you'll have to see. I mean, now he's got his 4th win and it was pretty dominant for the most part in this race. And then had a little bit of a charge from Ty Gibbs there at the end, but I mean, that's, they were able to run all the laps and not have a green white checker there at the end. Maybe if that happened, maybe Ty Gibbs would have won, but or if they had a couple more laps, maybe Ty Gibbs would have won. But I mean, for the most part, Cindric won this race and then or dominated this race. And then, of course, we have to talk about Justin Haley taking some huge shots there in the backstretch. And then also Ryan Vargas was involved in that one, getting collected towards the end of that wreck. And, you kind of feel bad for a guy like that who's trying to make it. And, had his car chief who recently passed away. And that was, I guess, like the last car that team worked on. And so definitely kind of feel bad for that team and for Vargas. But especially because they're one of the smaller teams. They're just trying to grind, trying to make it in this sport, and they're having an accident like that takes damage, and they have to go out and repair that car and put it back together for the next race. So definitely unfortunate for them, but for the most part, it was just Austin Cindric stay here at Pocono and Xfinity.
Yeah, and we'll see. It's probably going to be battle between Cindric versus AJ Allmendinger as we get into Road America. Unlike the Cup Series, of course, the Xfinity Series has been racing at Road America for many years. Allgaier, of course, has won there too. So we'll see. Kevin Harvick will be in the race when we we go and preview that here shortly. In regards to the trucks, John Hunter Nemechek. Yeah, that's John Hunter Nemechek. Austin Hill clinched a playoff spot based on points with his 5th place finish. No, okay. So yeah, John Hunter beat Kyle Busch. So that's I guess different. He beat his boss, but then when you consider that's what Kyle Busch hired him for, it really isn't all that shocking. I guess it's a case of I mean, it used to be a thing where in the full season point standing, you'd say, okay, when is he going to lock up his championship? It's the same thing as with Cindric. The playoff format works for what's going on in both Xfinity and trucks. Do I really think it's going to change the overall result? No. Um, in the Cup Series, I have way too many cars, but the fact of the matter is there's somewhat competitive people going back a few places behind just, the 2 guys that are the highest point earners so far this year. And the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series really is straightforward. If you tell me that we're halfway through this year overall and that Austin Cindric is not in the top 4, more like top 2, at the end of the season, and it's the same for the John Hunter, I'll be shocked. There would have to be a miracle because the way that John Hunter Nemechek has run all year, won the second stage, only led 12 laps, but he led the one that counted. Kyle Busch going and getting a second place finish, leading the most laps. It's just continues the domination of Kyle Busch Motorsports this year. Sheldon Creed, Tyler Ankrum, Austin Hill, the top 5, Crafton, Gilliland, Zane Smith, Ryan Preece in a second consecutive race for David Gilliland Racing, and Derek Kraus, your top 10. Josh Berry finished 11th, driving the Rackley Roofing number 25 Chevy. So credit to him on that. Yeah, it's I really don't know. I mean, Jack Wood, that's a great name. Went and missed a shift and got hooked sideways and got into Johnny Sauter, who I think said about 86 F bombs probably after that. Uh, yeah, I mean, let me go to the point standings before I go and throw to you, Josh. In regards to this, it's the point standings as of now. He's got an 86 point lead over Ben Rhodes, and he's got a 23 point lead in playoff points. Austin Hill right now is third in overall point standings, but based on with the drivers that have won already, Nemechek, Rhodes, Todd Gilliland, Sheldon Creed would be ahead of Austin Hill. Also, Zane Smith would be, but there's only a couple of races to go before the playoffs start. So Austin Hill's actually locked himself into the playoffs. So that means there's what amounts to 5 of the 10 drivers that'll make the playoff are already in. Zane Smith, more than likely, when they go to Knoxville, they'll be able to get themselves in pretty solid. And then it'll go from there. You have Crafton, Friesen, Hocevar, and then Chandler Smith is the cutoff right now, who has a 31 point lead over Johnny Sauter, 33 point lead on Tyler Ankrum. So, I mean, it's this. I mean, you wonder with John Hunter what the long term game plan is. Is he going to go up to the Xfinity Series next year? What are they going to do? Is 2311? Is that an option? I mean, I don't think it is. Probably Kurt Busch, as we said earlier, but I mean, you said, I said, whatever. But what is the long term goal for John Hunter Nemechek? Yeah, I think he wants the hardware, join his dad as a NASCAR champion. But is he willing to play the long game? Can he play the long game and somehow or another get a better ride out of it? Maybe he's holding out for Trackhouse. I don't know. Like what is at this point? It's like what are the options for John Hunter as he keeps on going and dominating this Truck Series season?
Well, I think for John Humner, I mean, first of all, with this win, I mean, this is the third time that he's beaten Kyle Busch. So it shows how good of a driver he is, shows how good of a team that the number 4 team is in the Truck Series. And it also with Kyle Busch finishing second there in that race, it does show how well the KBM team is above the rest of the field and shows the lack of depth in the series overall compared to Xfinity and compared to the Cup series. And you talk about Xfinity and Truck being a little bit more straightforward and who's the best team. Well, I mean, there's a lot of variance in the Cup series and because it's I guess a little bit more competitive over there and not is quite the same in Xfinity, and then Truck is way more straightforward than both. But then I think also to talk about John Hunter Nemechek, I think with his dominance this year, I think you're right. He is playing the long game. Eventually, I mean, I think he'll probably win this championship as well. But I think for him, maybe Xfinity, find a Joe Gibbs ride in Xfinity or another Toyota affiliated ride or whoever's available that's competitive in that car. Maybe see that JRM opens or something like that, and he decides to go and take a ride over there. I don't think he's really tied to any manufacturer, it seems like. I mean, he'll just drive for whoever's the best car in the series. He does have connections to GMS, formerly raced there a few years ago in the Xfinity series. And then I think with the Cup series, maybe he's an option for GMS decides to go back to the Cup series or go up to the Cup series. They decide to hire him as one of the drivers or be the driver to drive for that team. Maybe JRM decides to hire him if they go up to the Cup Series. So there's a lot of options, but I think the future is still a little bit unclear as far as where he could land in there. But I think the goal for him, I mean, I think that's what his goal is ultimately, is to get his way back up to the Cup Series and parlay that into a quality ride there by dominating in a lower series like the Truck Series.
It's something to see as we go. They're going to have not there aren't going to be a whole lot of races here in the next few weeks for the Truck Series. They're going to run next week at Knoxville for the first time ever, and their one dirt race of the year, or second dirt race of the year. Sorry, because they're in Bristol, and then they'll have a month off, I believe, and they'll run at Watkins Glen for the first time in a long time, and that'll be the cutoff before the playoffs start. So the gaps of time there between these races, so plenty of time for some of these teams kind of build up their stuff as they get into the stretch run of the year. We'll go to the roundup this week, which involves we'll get into the MotoGP and Moto 2 situation, and we had Fabio Quartararo in getting a win there, and the Vinales, Maverick Vinales, going and leaving Yamaha for the 2022 season, which means he's a free agent, opens up a ride at the main Yamaha team, which is a big deal. And you don't know who is going to be going there. Valentino Rossi, of course, is struggling and basically is becoming irrelevant. So it's and it looks like the Vinales move would be to go to go and ride for Aprilia, which would be interesting. Like to move crew chief as for extra. Mercy. Okay. So then it's a fracture. Like a second shock. Yeah. So that would be to bring up Franco Morbidelli. Those was like me Petronas need to fine tuners. Yeah, that would be an interesting deal because that would mean that the Petronas SRT team would probably have to either recruit one of the riders that are currently in MotoGP, or they'd have two riders from the Moto 2 championship, possibly Garrett Gerloff goes and moves over after his fill-in opportunity this past weekend to replace Franco Morbidelli itself. And he rode for Valentino Rossi, 17 and 2-year-old A-Spec Yamaha. Yeah, so, I mean, it could be an option. It would be cool. It would be nice to see an American on the grid. And that would be my girl is at the works. Reported GRT has always been linked to SRT and Rasagulu. Yeah. I think both of them, it sounds like what it would be. Rasagulu or Gerloff, or both, probably go there. That would be something to see. I mean, after all these years with Vinales, everything's like imploding, but then it doesn't really matter because Maverick Vinales is way too inconsistent. He got a second place finish behind Fabio Quartararo, but Quartararo is leading the world championship. Joan Mir is third, the defending world champion. Zarco fourth, Oliveira fifth, Pecco Bagnaia sixth, Marc Marquez seventh after a couple of crashes this past weekend. Alex Espargaro eighth, Taka Nakagami ninth, and Polo Espargaro 10th. Yeah, Gerloff is 17th. He was, 21 seconds away from a possible point in his second race in the MotoGP World Championship. In terms of the Moto 2 race, Fernandez for KTM, Raul Fernandez, Adjo KTM over Remy Gardner. So by 1.06 seconds, and Augusto Fernandez by 1.265 seconds. And Sam, so 4 riders within less than 2 seconds. Sam Lowe's fourth, Marco Bezzecchi fifth. In regards to, Cameron Beaubier fell 1 position shy of a point. And Joe Roberts had a retirement 7 laps into the race, a mechanical something. Everybody else behind or around him that fell out were accidents. So Roberts loses ground in regards to the standings there. Gardner leads by 31 points over Raul Fernandez. Bezzecchi is third. Roberts falls to 10th in points. He's now in a 3-way tie for what is 8th at 50 points total with Fernandez and Vieje. Aaron Canet is 7th, 5 points out of them. Ayagura, the Japanese rider, is 1 point behind that 3-way tie there. So Beaubier is 15th in points, 4 points behind Tony Arbolino. You just go back there and give you the standings on the MotoGP. Quartararo is up by 34 on Zarco. Pecco Bagnaia is third, Mir fourth, Jack Miller fifth. Bagnaia, Mir, and Miller only separated by 9 points. Vinales is sixth. He's 14 points out of third. Then there's a gap to Miguel Oliveira of 10 points, and then after that, an even bigger one. Alex Espargaro, Brad Binder, Marc Marquez, your top 10. Let's see here. We can go from that, and W Series was at Austria last week for their first race in a couple of years. Um, that was a interesting one, which saw Alice Powell go and get another win in the W Series, and they have a new format with how they're going to run like teams, 2-car teams instead of them just being like general cars. Alice Powell over Sarah Moore. Fabian Woldwind was third. Valen Garcia fourth. Miki Koyama was fifth. Defending champion Jamie Chadwick had a spin but came back to finish sixth. What is it? Ayla Agron was her 10th. Betske Visser 12th. Sabre Cook finished 14th. Abby Eaton was 15th. Hawkins 16th. Vicky Perea was the last car that actually finished. She was 3 laps down. Top 10 gets points there. So Ayla Agron was the last person to get points. They'll be racing again this weekend at Austria before they then go to Silverstone and Hungary, Budapest, in the month of July. Then they'll run Spa and Zandvoort before finishing their year at Coda and the Grand Prix the Mexican Grand Prix at Hermanos Rodriguez circuit. The 6 hours at the Glen, when it was last week, Mazda came through with fuel mileage to go and win the 6 hours at the Glen for a second year in a row. They won by less than a second over Dane Cameron and Olivier Pla in the number 60 Meyer Shank car. Ricky Taylor, Felipe Albuquerque, and Alexander Rossi rounded out the podium. So Acura's finished second and third. The Cadillacs finished behind them, the 31, 48, 01, and the 5 car were the rounded out everybody. So all those cars, the whole entire prototype class was within a lap. Then you have the LMP2 category, which saw the number 11 with Thomas Stephen, Tristan Nunez, Thomas Merrill win an LMP2 over the 52 PR1 Matheson car with Ben Keating, Mikkel Jensen, Scott Huffaker. The GTLM was won by Antonio Garcia and Jordan Taylor over the BMWs of the 24 and 25 BMWs in for Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan, Gar Robinson, Felipe Fraga, Scott Andrews in the 74 Ranch Resort LMP3 ended up getting the victory over John Bennett, George Kurtz, and Colin Brown by what is 2 seconds or so. Then the Jim Cox, Dylan Murray, and Jurian Bleekemolen car finished fourth. And then you have GTD, which Bill Auberlin adds to his illustrious resume with another endurance win over with Bobby Full and Aiden Reed in the Turner Motorsport BMW over Brian Sellers, Madison Snow, and Corey Lewis in the Paul Miller Racing Acura, and then Roman DeAngelis, Ross Gunn, and Ian James in the Harder Racing Aston Martin. They'll be racing they'll be racing a 2-hour, 45-minute race at Watkins Glen this weekend. Then their next race will be Lime Rock in the month of July before they take a break and go to Road America for Road America 500, and then another gap till Laguna Seca. F3 at Austria this weekend, and in regards to that championship, there's been a lot of intrigue, a lot of competitiveness, a lot of American drivers in that series. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond. And going into the points, Dennis Hauger has a 6-point lead over Victor Martins, 10-point lead over Jack Doohan, and near 19 points over Clement Novalak, who scored in every race this year. Martins has scored in every race this year. Ollie Caldwell is 5th. Logan Sargent is 9th, best American driver. He's at 18 points. He's 15 points behind Frederick Vesti. Juan Manuel Correa is 15th. He has 8 points. You have Kalen Frederick, and then I think there's one other driver that is an American driver there, but that's that. They'll be racing at Austria this weekend. We're going to the World Superbikes at Donington Park, which Garrett Gerloff, of course, will be returning to try and get that World Championship to go and move over to the MotoGP World Championship. But it's something we will see in regards to their situation. Ray, 20-point lead over Rastigulu. Third is Scott Redding. Then you have Alex Lowe's and Michael Ruben Rinaldi in 4th and 5th. There are 6 points between them. Gerloff is 6th, which he's 23 points behind Michael Ruben Rinaldi as of now, trying to make the most of this season. That's what they're doing there, Garrett Gerloff, to kind of make sure things will turn around. And then British touring cars were at Snetterton last week. Colin Turkington beat Tom Ingram and Rory Butcher in race 1, with Stephen Jelly, Ollie Jackson in top 5. And Ash Sutton, Colin Turkington, Ollie Jackson finished on the podium in race 2, with Tom Ingram, Rory Butcher, Tom Oliphant, Stephen Jelly, Adam Morgan, Jack Goff, and Aiden Moffat in the top 10. And then Tom Ingram, Ash Sutton, Gordon Shedden make up the podium in race 3, but Josh Cook, Stephen Jelly, Rory Butcher, Colin Turkington, Adam Morgan, Jack Goff, and Daniel Rowbottom were your top 10. And in the point standings, Ash Sutton has a 3-point lead over Tom Ingram. Then big gap to Josh Cook, which is 26 points. And then from there, it's even bigger between Turkington, Hill, and Oliphant. 5 points between them. So with all that done, we'll get to Formula One, the Austrian Grand Prix. I'll throw to you, Josh. Who do you look for that could win this deal versus who could be a dark horse candidate for a podium or a top 6 finish, something like that?
Well, I mean, I think it's obvious. Look for the home team in Red Bull and their best driver with Max Verstappen to go out and basically go back to back here in Austria. And I think it's pretty clear with the way that they're performing right now that they should be the team to beat and should be the team to win. I mean, maybe we might see something from Sergio Perez possibly with that team, but maybe he can get a podium this time around. Last week finishing 4th and just missing the podium. So for that team, I look for them to be the team to beat this weekend. Then I mean, maybe with Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas, look for them to get onto the podium. I think for I guess a wild card team, underdog team to look out for in the midfield, something like that. I'm going to go with Charles Leclerc in Ferrari. I mean, I think with the performance that they put on this weekend and being able to get back into the points, albeit they were a lap down, certainly brings a lot of confidence for that team after what they had the previous week. So I think with basically having the same race again. Expect to repeat the result here at Austria again. So I think with that, we expect them to, and Sergio or not Sergio Perez, but Carlos Sainz to be able to both get into the points this weekend here at Austria.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned it earlier. Status quo is probably what it's going to be. Red Bull wins. Maybe they don't win by as much of a gap, but they'll win again. It'd be nice to see Lewis actually battle him. I think their eggs are more in the basket of the British Grand Prix upcoming and the sprint race format qualifying too, to see if they can go and get around that instead of being beaten on sheer one lap pace. I am intrigued with what's going to happen with him. I'm also intrigued about what could happen possibly with George Russell, since he ran so well last week at Austria, not only in practice but in qualifying, and had an opportunity possibly score points there. Like to see Williams score points again. George Russell kind of leave the team because more than likely that's what's going to happen. On a good note, well, Nicholas Latifi just wastes his time there. The NASCAR Cup and Xfinity Series will be at Road America. Cup Series, of course, for the first time ever. It's going to be, I think, we'll start with Xfinity, actually. And I mean, I think I mentioned it earlier. It'll be, what is it, the Henry 180. You'll have 43 cars for, I think, 40 spots or 38 or whatever it is. Kaz Gralla will be in this field. Sebastian's our crew chief on that 42 MBM car. Josh Balicki randomly in the 07. Andy Lally will be in the 5. You have the 6 car will have Spencer Pumpalley. Trying to see who else there. I mean, you have the regular suspects, Cindric and Allmendinger, in regards to road courses. You have Gralla in the Jordan Anderson 31. You have Kyle Busch in the 54. So I guess, and Ty Gibbs is in the 81. It says Monster Energy, but he hasn't had Monster Energy in this car in a while, so I don't know why that. And Kevin Harvick will be in a BJ McLeod 99. I would assume it'll be an old Chase Briscoe car. So 2 of the best Cup drivers there are in Busch and Harvick. Does it basically start and end with them, or are we looking at the Xfinity road racing regulars for this weekend?
I think for this one, it's a tough decision. I think with Harvick being fairly good on road courses, but this his first time out there, and also Kyle Busch, their first time out here racing at Road America. But of course, a lot to learn in practice, and they've probably done a lot of practice on the sim, on their own and with the team. So I think they've probably got a lot of homework that they've done already. And then of course, Allmendinger and then Austin Cindric, the 2 best road course racers right now in Xfinity. And then, I have to throw in Justin Allgaier, who's had history here in the past with previous wins in Xfinity here at Road America. It's a very tough pick here, but I'm gonna go with Kevin Harvick here. I think they figure out a way to get it done in the 99 car with BJ McLeod would be one of the first ones ever for that team, or the first one ever in the Xfinity series for that team. And I think Harvick's pretty good at this, could be pretty good at this track. I mean, I think he's a fairly solid road course racer. Kyle Busch could be there at the end too, but I think overall Harvick gets it done over the Xfinity regulars like Allmendinger, like Austin Cindric, who've been to this track several times and really know their way around this place. I think Cup guys get it done this weekend.
Yeah, I'll just go with Kyle Busch. I figured it'll be a Cup guy, and you picked Harvick, so I'll pick Kyle Busch. If you had picked Kyle Busch, I'd have picked Kevin Harvick because last time that '99 car ran with a Cup guy, with the Stewart Haas equipment or whatever, Briscoe had a chance to win that race until the last pit stop, and they made the wrong adjustment and put him in a position where he was able to be caught by Trust Fund Baby Gibbs. So I'll pick Kyle Busch for, I think, was it win number 101. I think in a wild card type driver for the Xfinity Series race. I think, I mean, it's not really a wild card based on his talent and ability, but Jordan Anderson's team's not a very experienced team. They haven't had that many races so far this year, of course, because of the stupidity of the qualifying system they have, or lack thereof. That's one that I would look at as kind of a wild card, is Kaz Gralla in the Jordan Anderson 31 to possibly go and stand out here this coming weekend. From there, we go to your sim segment, Josh. What do we
We forgot
need?
about Cup.
Oh, yes, sorry. Jeez. I was about to go and pass the Cup Series. Yeah. The jockey made an America 250 on July the 4th. Independence Day 1776. We are the champs. Oh, Richard. Uh, what is it? So Ryan Eversley will be making his Cup Series debut. You'll have AJ Allmendinger running, Austin Cindric. Justin Haley will be back in the 77. Ty Dillon will be running the 96. Kyle Tilley in 78. What's it called here? Yeah, so it'll be a full 40 car field. I'll start this one, and I will pick that Truex kid from Mayetta, New Jersey. I'm not picking a Hendrick car, probably at my peril, but I figure Truex needs to turn things around. Wouldn't be a bad place to do it. He needs a little bit of positive momentum going on as they get towards the playoff, and it would be a good start to that. In regards to a dark horse candidate, we've been talking about this team for a while during this episode, so I'm going to pick the 99. I'm going to pick Daniel Suarez as a possibility to get his first career win, and their first career win as an organization.
No, I think for me in this race, it's a easy decision, relatively speaking. I mean, I think this team they won at Sonoma, and they were running top 10, top 5 at Coda. So and they ran pretty well at Daytona Road Course. So I'm gonna go with Kyle Larson winning this race here at Road America. Start up on another win streak for him. I think they'll be able to, being a 4 mile racetrack, they'll have plenty of distance between themselves and whoever's ended up in second. I think for a wild card, I'm going to go with Bubba Wallace. Why not? I think, at Coda, he had a chance to be in the top 10 early on, but then caught up in that wreck with Truex there during that race. So they have a top 10 now. So let's pick up the positive momentum on that and maybe get a top 10 or top 15 finish there and get that race at Road America. So it should be an interesting race. Should be at Daytona. Honestly, it's July 4th. It's tradition. NASCAR should never left Daytona. I mean, if anything, put it back in the daytime, make it more interesting instead of the Florida thunderstorms that happen in the afternoon that I've been getting the last couple of weeks here in Florida, and takes away a opportunity for me to go to the races on July the 4th. Stepping on tradition again, and shouldn't be like that.
That's NASCAR for you.
Should be on Daytona. They don't respect their own history. So It should be in Daytona, 10 a.m. July 4th, or the Saturday of July 4th weekend in Daytona for the Cup Series and the Xfinity Series as well. Taking your race away from Florida, not respecting the people here in Florida, I guess, and the history of the sport. But that's NASCAR for you. And they're racing in Wisconsin of all places on July 4th. It's not a bad place to be. Road America's a good track, but Daytona, that's and it's restrictor plate racing, but that's where they should be on July 4th.
Yeah, well, that was the thing we talked about this time last year when they were racing at Indy, and they were running a road course race on the Saturday with a doubleheader with the IndyCar series and the Xfinity series, and then they were running what has now ended up being the last Brickyard 400 uh, on the Sunday. I think Harvick became a three-time winner of the Brickyard 400 too in the process. So uh, going into the record books there, being another Rick Mears guy to go and win three. Now that won't be a oval race anymore either, so they just throw that tradition out. I mean, even though stock cars at Indy have not been palatable since 2008, but even or 2007 or whatever the fuck year it was, I think it was 2008, whatever that was the blowout. They were blowing out tires or whatever every 5 laps or some shit. Um, it's the same deal here, like it's Road America, one of the greatest road courses in the world, one of the greatest tracks in motorsport tracks that exist. But I agree with Josh. July the 4th was Daytona. Run the Coke Zero 400 there. Destroy your equipment. Get all those super speedway cars destroyed in July. And if you still want to gamble or do whatever, it's fine. Now you just basically have made the last race before the playoffs start into a lottery. And it's part of the reason why Michael McDowell ran over Brad Keselowski to win the 500, because it's a lottery. And, they'll say there's talent involved in super speedway racing, but it really isn't. It's more about luck. At least at the road course race in this situation, you have to put everything together to possibly go and get that win. So we'll see about what happens there, and we'll discuss it here next week. Uh, Let us know in regards to your sim exploits, Josh. What do we need to know about what you've been doing and what you're going to be doing here as the days and weeks go by?
Well, I'll start off with what's going on right now. Actually, I mean, I'm obviously not in this race because we're recording this deal right now, but got 2 laps to go right now in the Firecracker 400 over on iRacing. Dale Jr. is in 15th. I don't know who's leading, but it's been a pretty entertaining race watching that stream, and everybody's getting loose, and it looks like the leader is about to crash here into turn one on the restart. So pretty interesting, and everybody's like trying to scramble and drive away and everything. It's been interesting race to follow. I mean, you've seen guys get loose off of turn two, get loose off of turn four onto the coming to the start finish line, and it's been fairly interesting to watch with the way that they're having to fight the handling, fight the tire. Where 30 laps in a run, it's like these guys are really scrambled throughout the field, and you see comers and goers, you see guys trying to save their tires for the end, and it's been a pretty exciting race to watch. I mean, a lot of crashes and stuff, but definitely something I think going forward. I think in the future we're going to try to put an entry in every year. It's I think definitely for iRacing, for oval racing on iRacing. I think it's one of the more marquee non iRacing officiated events. I mean, obviously it's a privately officiated event through the eRacer GG group. So definitely going to try again next year. Of course, Open Wheels 500 later in the fall. It's going to be another event to look out for here and on iRacing. And then I haven't really been on it lately. Just been busy with other stuff. Sometimes that's how it goes. But I did visit a friend's house over the weekend, and then we got into Gran Turismo and was able to do some VR. He's got a VR headset on PlayStation, and was able to run Laguna Seca in VR with a Mercedes GT3 car. So that was pretty interesting, and it was definitely interesting view doing it from straight from the point of view of the driver. And I mean, it's pretty easy for me to get around. I mean, not really. I mean, they had the driving assist on, then I forgot to change all that stuff, so there's a little bit of help from the computer. But I mean, my friend was with me. He's like, "Yeah, I can tell you have a lot of practice with racing games, so that's how I guess used to it now." So definitely something to look out for. Maybe try to get a VR thing later on or something like that. More of a monitor setup guy or TV, but maybe that's something I'll look into. But we'll keep it going with maybe sometime next week with IndyCar stuff and NASCAR 87, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, we'll go and check all that out on your stream, uh, on Twitch, and also on iRacing. I wish I had a rig. It's one thing I'm hoping with this new gig and getting some stuff together. Hopefully, one of these days I'll get a rig so I can go out there and humiliate myself behind the wheel. But whatever, it'll be fine. I'll be better than Quinn Huff. I'll put my bar low. As long as I'm better than Quinn Huff and Egghead, I think then that's good enough for me. But I'll at least be able to drive fast, and I'll drive all these circuits. Uh, that's the end of tonight's Grip Strip podcast, episode 67 of the GSP. Where can we uh, find you, Josh, in regards to your social media and your Twitch handle and the whole bit?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to mention that in the previous part, but I think with iRacing and any other video gaming I'm doing, I was always follow Twitch TV slash USailor2, and watch on there when I'll try to give out notification when I go live and all that stuff, and then you can go there and watch my racing or other gaming that I decide to do. Then for social media, I mean, I'm always active on Twitter, and you can follow me on there at JP Huffine on there, and then we always have discussion on there and talk about things that are happening during the races and talk about other things that have happened and stuff, and then we can discuss and have discourse on there. So that's where you can follow me.
And you can follow me at Philip G. Matthew on Twitter. You could follow the show at Grip Strip Pod on Twitter. And you can hear the Grip Strip Podcast on Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Spotify, Podbean, Pandora, um, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, TuneIn. You can also see the Grip Strip Podcast links on philipgmatthew.com. I'll talk about the racing on my Twitter. I'll be on the Grid Talk podcast more than likely for Sunday's post race edition after the Austrian Grand Prix to live stream on the F1 Chronicle Facebook and also on YouTube, which with F1 Chronicle or F1 Grid Talk, or you can go and look it up. There's a whole backlog of episodes for them. So if you want to go and live stream and say whatever awful things to me instead of saying it to somebody else, like certain people seem to do, that's fine. I can take it. I can back it up too. So F you. With that, thanks, Josh, as always, for being the loyal sidekick and providing great insight across everything we went over today, especially with the charter deal and the Formula One and with wait a minute. I'm thinking about one thing. Did we're gonna go and we're gonna do a rewind before we leave because I'm going through this in my head. IndyCar
We
at
forgot about
Mid Ohio.
IndyCar.
So I just
Oh.
remembered that. I just remembered that. So the fact of the matter is, we're not going to end this show. We're going to get IndyCar in, and then we're going to end the show. So, yeah, IndyCar Mid Ohio. It's going to be 26 car field. As I mentioned, Ryan Norman will be making his IndyCar Series debut at Mid Ohio, and I mean, you're gonna have Renus VK returning, Felix Rosenquist returning. That's and there's going to be a 1 month gap between this race and the next race, since the next race will be after the Olympics. You'll have. I mean, where the heck is? They don't even have. Probably have to go on racer.com. That would have been brutal to leave that out, but we caught ourselves. I was thinking about it for a second there, and then you got. Of course, there's no IndyCar league. How the hell do you're running a race and you don't even have an entry list? I mean, like you can't even get an entry list on the freaking website. Like that's such a crap website. Honest to God, the IndyCar website is not good because
Yeah,
you
it
can't.
sucks.
It's not a like. It's part of the reason why you wonder why nobody freaking follows it. Well, yeah, because your website sucks. Um, um, yeah, I mean, Scott Dixon is right now third in points. He's what is it, 49? He's 53 points behind teammate Alex Palou. Pato Award is second in points. He's 28 points behind Palou. 2 wins for each of those drivers. Dixon has one. The Penske Cars have not won a race so far this year. Renus VK returns. He has a win. Colton Herta has a win. Ericsson has a win. Green Rehal, the hometown hero, or at least initially grew up. He grew up in Ohio. His family has connections there, similar to like Cindric, of course, because his grandfather is the late Jim Truman. One of his grandfathers, late Jim Truman. So, uh, there's a thing with him. Graham Ray Hall, of course, has won there before. Uh, who do you? I think. I mean, we start with the top three. I think one of those three guys is the most likely to win, but I'll let you go first, and then I'll go and make my picks in regard to who I think will win or who could be a wild card pick this weekend.
I'm going to pick Scott Dixon here for the winner here at Road or Mid Ohio. I think it's overdue a little bit for Scott Dixon to win a race. I feel like this is the time where Scott Dixon starts to go out and win races here in IndyCar, and this definitely has his name on it to win. So it'll be interesting to see how he's able to race and how he's able to execute, or how the team's able to execute strategy. If they decide to go long on fuel or something like that, if they've got enough pace, or if they decide to do some kind of undercut, I'd like to see what happens there. And then also talk about his teammate Jimmy Johnson. Has been not really, I wouldn't say struggling, but he's definitely been learning. Well, maybe this time he'll actually get a lead lap finish, and maybe it'll be the last car in the lead lap, but nonetheless still finish on the lead lap. So that would be a pretty good achievement for that team, I think, and where he's at. So maybe that happens this weekend. I'll predict it.
It'd be nice for Jimmy Johnson to actually finish on lead lap and not spin out. It'll be it's a tough test because Mid Ohio, whether it's in a stock car or an Indy car, it's a very difficult racetrack. So we'll find out. We'll see what happens with that. It's only two 45-minute practice sessions, albeit that's what it is. Usually one 45-minute session on Friday afternoon, then Saturday morning before they do the qualifications at 12 noon and go until just after 1. They'll have a 30-minute final practice on Saturday before they race on Sunday on July the 4th as a precursor to the Road America Cup race. For me, I was thinking Scott Dixon, but I think I'm going to go with Pato Award. He had a little bit of struggle there last race, and I think he will at Road America and finishing ninth. I think he will come back and he'll get his third win of 2021 at Mid Ohio. In regards to a wild card selection, yeah, this is not trying to think of somebody that's outside of the top, whatever, 10 in points, and so that it doesn't seem as over the top in regards to session past winners and whatever. Yes, yeah, it's just a terrible website. I'm trying to think of a freaking dark horse here. For the entry-less, IndyCar, Grand Prix, don't have that. And get to edit all of this later, that's fun. You will have in Ohio, then dang it. Yeah, and then they'll have a month before Nashville, and then they'll be running like basically 3 weeks in a row. Then they'll have 3 weeks in a row to end the season on the West Coast. Regards to a wild card, I'll pick Jack Harvey. Why? Because it's Meyer Shank Racing. He's an Michael Shank's an Ohio guy. Mid Ohio is his home racetrack. At some point, Jack Harvey's luck has to turn around. He puts together great qualifying runs and then dumps it in the race. At some point, that has to go and change, and that he goes and makes the race pace work. All right, so now with that, we will end tonight's Grifter podcast. Both Josh and I were able to save ourselves there on that IndyCar deal. And hopefully the IndyCar race is memorable enough that we won't forget it when talking about it next week on the Grifter podcast. And we thank you for listening to us. Take care of one another. Stay safe. God bless. And take care.